Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Turn around. Secrets in the shadows, lost and found. Truth in every echo, loud and clear. Keep on with the long road, no more fear. In the halls of power, whispers grow. Every secret got beneath the undertone. Honest stories hidden in the dust. On this long road, in the truth we trust.
Welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Chris Roberts. We're going to talk about Project 2025. This is the Part 2 edition. But before I go in depth on Project 2025, there's a number of things that are happening right now that are the result of Project 2025. But it also shows the hypocrisy of a lot of the corporations in the United States. They really don't have, a lot of them just don't have a social value. These corporations, they just want to get your money. Target every year in February with Black History Month would have a little display of small black businesses products that people could buy. And they would kind of celebrate, this is Black History Month. You know, we want to talk about a lot of the great inventors, a lot of the people that really contributed to the betterment of the United States. You go into Target, nothing at all. Google decides, well, you know what? Black History Month, we can't fit it on the calendar. Asian American, Pacific American, Hispanic American, women, they're all gone. So what are we going to celebrate? I guess we can't celebrate anything because the president and a number of his people are saying, you know, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yes, those people went too far. It was jammed down people's throat, just like Black lives. Okay, Black life. We have a few killings, and so yes, a lot of the corporations and everything started donating money and talking about Black Lives Matter. Yes, you had some of the people that were running Black Lives Matter did some questionable financing on it. It was no different than a lot of the veteran ones where a bunch of the people who quote helping veterans were paying themselves and family members quite a bit of money before and just gave the veterans help what was left over. And I just don't feel comfortable anymore. I'm spending my money in places like Target or Walmart or things like that saying, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to celebrate Black History Month. We're not going to celebrate a number of these. Like I was going to say, is the president, and when the helicopter crashed, the helicopter, which didn't have its safety devices on and was flying high, crashed into the airplane, killing 64 people on it. What they're talking about? Oh, they're talking about the transgender pilot that was flying it. or they were talking, maybe it wasn't, it was a DEI unqualified person that was flying that plane that caused, the helicopter that caused the problem. Right out of the bat. Well, there is a transgender helicopter pilot who served some tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, but she wasn't the one. She was a National Guards person flying for another state. Jump to conclusions. Well, there weren't people of color on the helicopter. Then they go and say, well, yeah, maybe the guys that were in the tower, maybe probably the guy in the tower was the DEI hire, and then he wasn't qualified. Because he wasn't qualified, this crash resulted. Well, it comes to find out that the tower was undemanned. Here it is. There's supposed to be an individual that's tracking helicopters and all this stuff, and there's a guy supposed to be tracking the aircraft. Oops. It wasn't a DEI. It was a management thing, because you had two guys. You're supposed to have two because they're really critical, but they had one guy going back, forth. He asked the pilot of the helicopter, can you see the plane out there? The pilot of the helicopter says, yes, I can see the plane. And so he's going back to the other one. And it was hard to see. Well, there's a lot of planes. What plane did the pilot see? And the pilot was supposed to be under 200 feet. He was about 300. Okay? So, early this week, they had a big event for black college students that were getting engineering degrees, and they scored extremely high, top notch. The Army and Navy didn't show up. Were these guys going to be diversity hires? These guys, like in the men and women, maybe in the top 1 or 2%? No, they weren't going to be diversity hires, because they're more than well qualified. And I go, and as I keep digging deeper and deeper into this, it is scary. It is getting to a point that it kind of reminds me way back when John D. Rockefeller gave millions of dollars to this minister that worked for him, and their goal was, we don't need painters, we don't need magicians, we don't need any of the stuff. All we need is workers. We do not want these people, these students, to dream of doing something else. We want workers. So they worked with a lot of school districts around the country to create workers. You went to 8th grade, you knew enough, and then you could go to work. Hey, New Hampshire, no different. If you were in Manchester, where'd you go? 8th grade and into the factories. Up in Berlin, 8th grade, and then into the pulp mills. Winchester, 8th grade, then into the tannery factories. This happened all over the country. And Rockefeller was really happy, because Rockefeller was becoming one of the richest guys in the world, because he was creating a group of individuals that were working and he did not have to pay. Okay, is that what we want now? Just teach the kids up to a certain standard? It's kind of like going on a number of the shows I talk back is we talk about middle class and all. There is no middle class. Basically, if you're in the top 20%, you're extremely good. The other 80%, it's going downhill. And it's going to be going downhill really quickly. And you know, you always get in trouble. You always tick someone off when you talk about race, when you talk about sexism. It's so, okay, what we're saying here is it goes, a guy in Fox News said the Palestinians are a threat to Israel. The reason the Palestinians were the threat to Israel because the Palestinian women were averaging about 5.5 babies each compared to Israel, a little bit more than 2.5 children each. Totally unprofessional. Okay, another individual that's part of the Trump thing says, wait, we need to sterilize low intelligent people. You know, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, even in the 50s, we were doing it. California, Virginia, North Carolina. Hey, if your intelligence was low, we have to sterilize you. We don't want to have kids. Oh, you're 16, 17 years old. You're a little promiscuous. And so, hey, we'll just go sterilize you. You know? And guess what? We're not even going to tell you that we're sterilizing you. There are so many social things that are going to go wrong under Project 2025. A small group who are extremely wealthy want even more. But this has happened before. Before. You can only suck so much wealth out of people at the bottom. And every dictator around the world in history knows you got to keep a level of people at a certain comfort level, but not go into despair. Because once people get despaired, they get very dangerous. They get the feeling they have nothing to lose. As a country, we cannot afford that to happen. But Project 2025 is going after those people first. And then they're going after the people that are over 65. Why? Because the people over 65 really create no value to the country. They're viewed as a drain on our economic resources. So, what are we going to do? We have to find a way. When I'm saying we, the people who wrote the almost 1,000-page manifesto, they're looking at that. Okay? President Trump's first month as president, inflation rate went up to 3%. For the last 2 months, the inflation rate is going up, and it will continue to go up. We have a number of tariffs in everything. Here's the trick. Ronald Reagan knew this before. He would say, I'm not going to raise taxes. I'm going to tell people I'm not going to raise taxes. Well, what was happening was inflation was still high and people fought for bigger increases in their pay. So while inflation was high, taking away their purchasing value, income was getting higher and higher and was moving them into a higher tax bracket. At least we're protected now because the tax brackets are covered by inflation. But that's how Ronald Reagan said, nope, I'm not raising tax. I'm not increasing the tax rate. No, you allowed it to go to the next level. And that's what happened. Okay? We're going to do that kind of right now. 25% tariffs on steel, this and this and this. Okay? The money that the United States collects on a tariff goes into the federal revenue. So if the United States collected $100 billion in tariffs, that $100 billion excuse me, would be considered as revenue and help keep the budget deficit down. But we as American people would have paid basically $100 billion more because of the tariffs if we bought foreign goods. So under President Trump, he'd be like Ronald Reagan, I'm not raising your taxes. Well, yes, you are, Mr. President. If I buy, say, a refrigerator and it was made in China, and it costs 25, instead of $1,000, it costs $1,250. Okay. I paid $1,250, so I have $250 less in my pocket, or I have $250 more in debt, but the United States government got $250 in revenue. There's a lot of ways the government collect taxes from us without calling it taxes. That's okay. Let's just see some of the things under Project 2025. Okay, they're getting rid of American Rescue Plan. President said that anyway, and we knew that in advance. So that just means about 220,000 people in the United States will lose their jobs when those programs are shut down. Limit access to food assistance, food stamps, WIC, those things, 21.6 million households in the United States gets food stamps and WIC. One, they're talking about getting rid of Head Start. Because, Head Start gives you a jump on. Kids can get a jump and be prepared so when they start kindergarten. So you can go say, Head Start's a waste of time. Is it? Okay. Now just think. You have 40 kids, say, going to Head Start in Keene. Okay. 10 of them have special needs. So a lot of the needs will be taken care of by Head Start, but the Keene School District will send somebody to help on some of those needs. Because the way the law goes, if a child has special needs, the school district has to pick them up as early as 3 years old. So we have Jonathan Daniels, which is paid by the Keene taxpayers, and we have a number of special need kids there. And then we have regular kids who pay tuition because kids learn from kids. So if Head Start closes and we had 10 children there that had special needs, they would have to come to Jonathan Daniels, and the taxpayers of Keene would have to pick them up, the cost. But hey, people over 65, they really don't like them on Medicare, and they really want to push them on some of these Medicare Advantage programs. Basically, those they limit, they're like an HMO, and they kind of limit what you can do, when you can do it. You got to ask permission. So if I'm on Medicaid and I want to go and get something, I don't have to ask permission. I just go to my primary care doctor. They can send them. But no, if you have Medicare Advantage, you have an HMO that you have to go through to get specialized care in everything. Okay. They want to restrict medical, for abortions and stuff, because basically it's coming, everything, like I said last week, is pro-life. Okay. About 4 million people were protected a couple of years ago by a change because they were working, their companies were saying, you're a salary person. Your job, we can't consider your job an hourly one. So I'll make you a salary person so I can work you 60 hours and still pay you for 40 hours, no overtime, no nothing. But, a lot of these positions, I'm an assistant manager at McDonald's. Should I get paid by the hour or should I be salary, and pay 60 and work 60 hours a week without overtime pay? Hey, we've been going in. I worked at McDonald's for 4 years. Those assistant managers, most of them will never make it, will not move up, but they'll run ragged. Then you have the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Census Bureau, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So under Project 2025, they're saying, these are three independent things. let's put them all together. Well, when you put them all together, you're going to get fuzzy statistics and you won't be able to compare. And the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and Economic Analysis, they're all pretty important stuff. Data collected by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics is intentionally independent from partisan interests and frequently relied on the public employees. Okay. So what happens is, like for example, almost all the inspector generals have all been replaced. All being fired. Because the president and his people only want people who are loyal to the president. Not loyal to the United States, but loyal to the president. So if you replace all the inspector generals who are supposed to be independent and supposed to be able to look at this, to go and find out, for example, is the Bureau of Labor Statistics distorting the numbers? It's election time. Election time's coming up, and unemployment rate is way too high. So we're going to drop the unemployment rate down. Well, because we can move around the statistics. The interest rates are too high. We're talking about inflation. I don't like those inflation numbers. We got to do better. Bill Clinton was able to fix those inflation numbers. How did he do it? A plan called substitution. Hey, yeah, I know you paid $5 a pound for that steak. Well, now the steak went up 16% to $6 a pound. 20%, And you go, no, that's going to reflect it. You know what? Let's substitute a lower quality steak. Let's put a $3. It goes up to $6. You can't afford it, so you buy the $4 steak. No inflation, because you could substitute it. If you were someone who is buying the cheap steak, now you can buy cube steak. Substitution, little to no inflation. But wait a minute. I want that steak. That's your choice. But you know what? We may drop that out of the list this month. Project 2025 will make it harder for people to access food assistance by adding ineffective requirements and reevaluating the importance of the program. Okay. So basically, 92% of all food stamps or on the old person or SNAP benefits go to households with income at or below the federal poverty level. At or below the federal poverty level. According to research from the United States Department of Agriculture, 86% of all SNAP food stamps go to households that has a child, an elderly person, or a person with disabilities. Hey, if we find a way to kind of eliminate the people over 65, we reduce money. We got to, it's basically we're going to reduce. one of the big requirements is you're going to get, if you want food stamps, you're going to have to work. Now, here's a little trick. If I'm $1,000 below the income level, poverty level, and I get food stamps, I go out and work and I make $10,000 a year part-time. I may lose the majority of my food stamps. And my children may no longer qualify for free lunch or reduced lunch or free breakfast. Or you want Medicare benefits, Medicaid benefits? Go out and work. But if you go above, you're going to lose your Medicaid. Between Texas and Florida alone, they've already kicked off about 2.5 million people off Medicaid. And the very few people are replacing it with workers' insurance or private insurance. Yes, some are, but most are not. Most are now getting their health care in the emergency room. Head Start. Head Start's a DEI program, and all DEI programs have to be eliminated. You know, it's just like Black History Month not being celebrated in the military, Department of Defense. You ever stop to look at the military now? A lot of white kids are not joining the military. Why? Hey, it's much easier to play Call of Duty than have to do the real thing. The other one that we were talking about was brought up in the first term. Limit with disabilities qualify veterans for benefits. Project 2025 proposed to have the United States Department of Veterans Affairs cut costs by having fewer health conditions qualifying veterans for disability, a proposal that could greatly restrict disabilities' access to life-sustaining benefits. And people go, one of the things is kind of, hey, if you're unemployable, you get paid, say you're 70% and you're getting paid $1,800 a month, but you can't work. The VA says, okay, we'll make you unemployable. We'll pay you $3,800, $3,900 a month. Okay? So you can't work. You get a family, so you're getting about $50,000 a year. Yeah, you get break because you don't have to pay Social Security. You don't have to pay income tax and everything. But say you're 45 and you get unemployable. So for the next 22 years, you don't work. If you're lucky, you may be able to qualify for Social Security disability, but not everybody who gets VA unemployability qualifies for Social Security disability. So, say from 45 to 67, 22 years, let's round it off to 65. So that means for 20 years, you have zero income. Okay, and say you didn't go to work until you were 18. And of course, on those first years, you weren't making much money. So 18 to 45, you got 27 years that are credited. But the VA says you need 35. So what will happen is the VA will give you 8 years of zeros, put them all together and get an average and say, this is what you're going to get. But the new proposal they want to put in is that, oh, I know you're getting $4,000 a month because you're unemployable, but your 70% is only worth $1,700. So as soon as you turn 65, we'll take that unemployability away from you. You'll get your Social Security check, which will be really small because you had those zeros and a bunch of low income ones. And we'll give you your $1,700 and whatever you had for Social Security. And so say you get $1,300 for Social Security, now you got $3,000 a month to live on. May not help you, but it will help reduce the deficit. And so another proposal they have for veterans is, oh, you won't be able to collect Social Security, VA disability unless you have 30% or higher. Okay? Well, yeah, you get 20%, you collect close to $400 a month. But they go, hey, that's the majority of the veterans. They have 30% or less. But they go, wow, if we can get rid of those, hey, we don't have to pay for them, and a bunch of them won't even qualify to get in the healthcare system. So we've got games that play, and the people who are making this decision, very, very few of them ever served in the military. Very few of them have their children serve in the military or even know someone that served in the military. And as some individual once said, the military is for suckers. Okay, if you want to expand the military, you want to be able to go to the border, go overseas, you're saying, oh, you know what? If you get hurt, a bunch of these things will no longer count. If you get hurt, but don't get hurt enough, you're not getting anything. And oh yeah, we have a problem with you black and brown and yellow and red people. You're really not up to the level of the white recruits. So we want you to realize you're always going to be second tier. So your chances of moving up are pretty slim. That was one of the big things that Truman says, you know what? We got to integrate the armed forces. And a lot of people weren't happy with that. And so with Project 2025, we're not doing away with integration of the armed forces, but we're telling the whole group of people, you're not good enough. And there's going to be a ceiling on how far you can go. That is totally un-American. the some of the they want to end medication abortion or make it really difficult to access. Plan B. So if you go and you might get pregnant, or you think you might have a risk of getting pregnant, I'm going to go take Plan B. So Plan B, I don't have to have an abortion. I'm not sure I'm pregnant or not, but Plan B protects me from getting pregnant. And then the one on the medication abortion within the first 6 weeks of the people who had medicated abortions, nearly 2/3 of them were medicine related. Yeah, and they want to go way back to the Comstock Act. Comstock Act, if you ever get it, even if you just go to Wikipedia, the Comstock, this individual was a really, really wacko. He wanted to control all sexuality, all sexual acts. The government was going to control it. The government was going to decide what would be immoral, what was pornography, all this stuff. Basically, the government would have control, almost complete control of our bodies, especially women's bodies. On number 562, that would be originally passed in the 19th century to restrict the type of things that could be mailed. The Comstock Act today, in District Court, Robert Chambers' own words, is a widely abbreviated 19th century statute. Despite the Department of Justice, the courts, and Congress have already made it clear that the Comstock Act does not apply to legal abortion care, Project 28 plans to weaponize the Department of Justice and resurrect this act to ban nationwide medication of abortion access. Okay? They're going to ban saying that you can't mail it. Okay? Well, guess you could FedEx it, UPS it. There's a whole other ways. They'll be underground, so instead of people buying fentanyl, they'll be buying abortion medication. The other one, mandate for leadership, 458. Reversing federal approval of medicated abortion could deprive people of essential health care, even in states where abortion remains legal. In states where abortion is banned or restricted, it would further subject people to the whims of the state legislature, many of them who actively push or enact the abortion restrictions since the Supreme Court. And the Project 28 and the 458 Project 2025 would further undermine Medicaid abortion by mail by reimposing necessary and burdensome requirement that to be dispensed in person or a doctor. So basically, if you want it. So if you went to CVS or you went to Walmart, you could get it in person, or you could go to your doctor and get it, but it couldn't be mailed to you by a doctor or pharmacy. Okay? Got 3 daughters, 2 granddaughters. What would stop all 5 of them going to a drugstore and say, I want this, and then they switch around and rotate? And so they go to 5 drugstores. They all of a sudden, between them, they have 25 of these, and they mail them to someone they know who needs it, or they drive down and give it to them. What does the government do then? This in 459. A bare minimum policy of limiting abortion pills to the pre-2016 policy of 49 days gestation, returning to the pre-2021 in-person dispensing requirement, and returning to require prescribers to report all serious adverse events, not just death, to the drug sponsor, which would increase the woman's health and safety. Again, using the EPA to classify the chemicals in abortion pills as forever chemicals subject to strict regulation. Again, so changing things around and getting loyalists to the president, then they can go around these. So if they say, hey, you know what? Those pills are a forever drug or forever chemical, so we as the EPA have to control that, not HHS or the FDA. For us oldies, Medicare regulations restrict choice of coverage and care. The next administration should reintroduce and restore regulations and demonstration from the Trump administration that were withdrawn, weakened, or forever finalized by the Biden administration. OCR should withdraw its Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is HIPAA 86, guidance on abortion. OCR should withdraw its 2022 guidance 87 that proposes to address patients' privacy concerns following the Dobbs decision, but is actually a politicized statement in favor of abortion and against Dobbs. That's Mandate for Leadership 497. Okay? So what they want to do, our health protection, our health information is protected under HIPAA. There's so many things that someone else can't tell them. But one of their goal is, well, let's take abortion out of HIPAA. Guidance on abortion. Should withdraw its Health Insurance Portability and County Act, HIPAA, guidance on abortion. Oh, so if my wife has an abortion, I think my wife was pregnant, but I'm not sure. So does that mean I'll be able to go down to the doctor or the hospital and say, hey, I need to find out about my wife. Did my wife have an abortion? Yep, she did. What about my daughter? Did they have that? Did they come and talk about having an abortion? Yep, they did. Oh, or maybe I go to the abortion clinic and ask them. Yep, it won't be protected under HIPAA if they get what they want. So if you have an abortion, it would not be protected information. Now let's move on. Abortion is an emotional subject. I wouldn't want my wife or my daughters or my grandchildren to have an abortion. If they did, it was their choice, but it's not something I wanted. If they had the child and they couldn't take care of it, I have no problem coming in and supporting it because I and my wife have the resources. Other people do not have the resources. Mandate Leadership, page 72 and page 583. Courts have ruled that even without evidence of overt intentional discrimination, such results might suggest discrimination. This doctrine of disparative impact could be ended legislatively or at least narrowed through regulation process by a future administration. Well, people of color, disabled people, old people, women, it'd be almost impossible for you to prove that you are being discriminated against. Someone would have to go out and say, hey, you can do the N word, or you can do a word for Japanese, you can use it for women, you can use a word for a lesbian, or you would have to say something gross and insensitive in front of a crowd, basically to be able to even have a reasonable chance of winning your case for discrimination. I'm getting ready, I'm almost out of time, but in their own words, Mandate for Leadership on page 680, review forthcoming changes to race and ethnicity questions. The current administration has announced its intent to change data collected messages regarding race and ethnicity by combining the two questions on the census questionnaire and increasing the number of available options. A new conservative administration should take control of this procedure and thoroughly review any changes. Okay, Asian. Okay, China, Korea, Japan. They're Asian. They're pretty simple. Yeah, no question, they're Asian. But what about India? India is Asian. And you go, well, India's got 1.3 million people. A lot of people don't consider them Asian, but the census was saying they were Asian. So 1.1, 1.2. So India and China have about 2.5 billion people. About the Filipinos? Are they Asian? Nope, they're Pacific Islanders. So there's a bunch of things. Okay. Then Arabs. Is that an ethnicity or is that a race? It's not a race. But you say, hey, but is Arabs black? Are Arabs white? I don't know. because we don't ask religion. So there's all so many different rules to go. Let's see, one had on pollution. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, should be dismantled and many of its functions eliminated, sent to other agencies, privatized or placed under the control of states and territory. Mandate for leadership, 664. Okay, that is really good. We get rid of NOAA. I wonder who tracks our, oh no, we'll have a private organization track hurricanes. Maybe we'll have Florida track their own, California track its own Santa Ana winds and rain and snow. You know what? Leave it up to the states. Oh, okay. We have a snowstorm that's coming in Thursday morning, tomorrow morning. We know where that snowstorm came. We've been watching it. NOAA and other ones have been watching it for the past week and a half. You gonna leave that to private companies? You're gonna leave it to the states? Another one is conduct offshore oil and natural gas lease sales to the maximum extent permitted under the 2023-2028 lease program with the possibility to move forward under a previous study but unselected plant alternate. That's on page 2023. Okay. Want to ask yourself a question? Why does the United States have to import oil when it produces enough oil to meet our needs? You know why? Because we refine a lot of oil and products and everything, and we ship it overseas because we can make more money sending it overseas than using it in the United States. So instead, what we'll do is, yes, we need 20 million barrels a day. We make 20 million barrels a day. So what we'll do is we'll take 10 million of those barrels. We'll do jet fuel, paints, oils, other lubricants and stuff, and regular oil, and send them overseas. But we want to make the United States totally energy efficient. So instead of bringing some of those, keeping them back in here, we'll send those 10 million over, and then we'll drill and drill and drill until we get 10 million more barrels. So we got our own 20 million barrels a day to make us energy efficient, and at the same time, we would be able to keep spending those 10 million over. Guess what? Those people are going to send their oil to someplace else, and people will not be buying our oil. So there is so much in this Project 2025. Some can be good, but a lot is really scary, and a lot is going to cause a lot of hurt on a lot of Americans. And I don't see how anybody, the vast majority of Americans, will be able to escape it. So that's the show for today, and I wish I was more optimistic, but sometimes there's way too much crap out there. Have a good week and stay out of the snow if you can.